is to be inducted, they start jumping, carrying placards. Oh, he's been victimized. He's been this and that. We have to take away the politics of religion. We have to take away the politics of regionalism and tribalism and make the people realize that we need people that will lay foundations. If the leaders in the past have laid foundation for sound medical settings, sound medical sector, and gone back to the Africa Health Strategy framework that has been done. Now we have Africa Health Strategy 2016 to 2030. If we go back and begin to lay a good foundation and ensure that we have a good accountability framework that will ensure that there's a powerful example. I always say this, a powerful example is always powerful. If you lock up a minister, if you lock up a governor, if you lock up a president, if you really do all that, the people that come behind will realize that, look, this is a no-go area now. So we have to go back and fix things.
Thank you. Let me come to you. Lastly, you have the last word, Dr. Inabulele, just in 15 seconds. Why do you think we are unable to determine the actual cost of all these foreign travels of heads of state and government seeking medical attention abroad? 15 seconds.
Well, it is clear that a lot of work still needs to be done. A lot of expenditures are shrouded in secrecy. The ones we can have are the ones accessible to us as citizens, and of course as health activists, either at the level of the embassies or at the level of even the destination countries. So unless and until there are provisions to, of course, make some level of transparent transactions, you continue to have this kind of shrouded, this kind of...
Fellow Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians, greetings and welcome to this first edition of Eye on Education. Eye on Education is a program that focuses on educational matters in Southern Cameroons. My name is Elizabeth Bifuh-Ambe, and I'm the chair of the Southern Cameroons Education Department and the Southern Cameroons Education Board, also known as SCEB. Today, I'll be talking to you about many issues concerning education in our motherland and the reasons why our school systems need to be completely overhauled. This first address is going to be very long, so please find a chair, call the children, invite the neighbors, get some fresh corn and groundnuts, sit down, make yourselves comfortable in front of your TV set, and let's talk. I've wanted to do this for a long time, but I didn't get a chance to do so. So today, I will try to tell you most of the things I've been wanting to say to you for all these weeks, especially as today, I also heard when I talked to my family back in the motherland that some children are already going back to school. I really hope that when you finish listening to my speech today, those of you who sent your children to PSS and CPC and other places will wake up tomorrow morning and go and take them and bring them back home just like you did in November 2016. Today, we will examine the meaning of education. We will try to figure out how we got here. That is the genesis of this educational saga. Then I'm going to spend a little time talking to you, parent to parent, parent to children, teacher to students, and stakeholder to other stakeholders in education. Basically, I'll be talking to everybody. I hope that by the time I'm done, we would have understood why boycotting La Republique schools is not an act of irresponsibility, but an act of patriotism. This message I bring to you today will hopefully put to rest all the confusing write-ups and videos that are being sent out by our detractors. What if I told you that without education, you are as good as dead? How would you react? What would you say? Would you say something like, oh, well, my grandmother, my auntie, my mother, my uncle, they're not educated, but they're doing fine? Or maybe you would say, well, I'm not that highly educated either. I don't have a terminal degree like a PhD, but I can take care of myself and I'm happy. Well, if you said that, you would be right. But if I insisted that you are still as good as dead, I would be right too. Now, how is that possible? What makes the difference? The difference depends on how we define education. So, what is education? What really is education? Is it just the ability to read and write? You may go to school and know how to say your ABCs and count your 1, 2, 3s, but are you really educated or are you just literate? A robot can be taught how to read and write, but can we then say that the robot is educated? Definitely not. Why? Because the robot cannot reason. And that is the main difference between the educated person and the literate person, the ability to reason. The literate person knows how to read and write, while the educated person, on the other hand, has the ability to think critically and to use their reading and writing skills to their own benefit and the benefit of mankind in general. Literacy is very important. Don't get me wrong. It can enhance education, because by using your literacy skills, you can continue gaining new spectrums of knowledge and surging deeper and deeper into newer and broader realms of awareness. Being educated means using your talents and fine-tuning them to a level that those talents can provide you with your livelihood and make your community a better place. That is why Albert Einstein once said, education is what remains after one has forgotten what one has learned in school. Education is what remains after we've forgotten what we learned in school. Einstein, the smartest scientist the world has ever known, said this so that we should make no mistake about it. Going to school and having a big degree does not mean that one is educated. It just means that you went to school. Now, Dr. Martin Luther King reiterated this in the following words. The function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. Making the distinction between school and education is important. This distinction is especially important in our situation where we are dealing with a corrupt system of government like La Republique du Cameroon. La Republique is trying to make us believe that because our children attend inferior school systems, they are educated. No, they are not. And only an ignorant regime like La Republique will continue forcing our children to go to schools that do not educate them. And only an immoral regime will give students certificates for courses they did not take or make them write exams that they did not study for. Morally decadent people like Atta and Ekema Patrick are the products of such a defunct educational system. Atamanji Paul dropped out of St. Bede's College in Form 2. Actually, he could not pass the exams to go to Form 3. He frauded his way through life, and then he was finally made minister in La République, minister of special events. Now, what special affairs is Atanganji concerned about? Is Atanganji Paul's special duties just to betray his own people? When I listen to somebody like Atanganji Paul, who shouts at us and insults us and talk badly to us Southern Cameroonians, I cry for my country. How did we get here? How did we get to a place where Atanganji Paul and Ekema Patrick are the boss over us? Now, remember that Ekema Patrick failed English, but he got admission into the University of Boya. He then became the mayor and chief administrator of Boya. And these are the products of the kind of education we want for our country, a system where people who fail exams are promoted. My professional ethics feels violated. Why bother to teach when students can fraud certificates? In fact, my dignity as a human being feels particularly insulted when I think that in a country which I call my own, these are the caliber of people who are making decisions for the rest of us. This is unacceptable. No wonder these crooks do not want us to change the system, because they know that in a nation where people understand the real meaning of education, people like Ekema and Atanganji Paul would be jobless. Because having a job in a decent society should be based on one's skills and talents, not bribery, corruption, discrimination, incompetence, nepotism, and entitlement. In any law-abiding nation, Atanganji Paul and Ekema Patrick and the likes of them who are running the La République system today would be in jail for fraud. These frauds are not educated. They are the products of a corrupt regime. It is because there is a difference between education and mere schooling that Horace Mann, who is known as the father of American public education, said, "Education then, beyond all devices of human origin, is the great equalizer. It is the great equalizer of the conditions of men and women, the balanced wheel of the social machinery. Education equalizes the farmer to the inventor, the carpenter to the lawyer, the plumber to the doctor, the babysitter to the nurse, the minister to the man on the street, the woman who sells in the food market to the teacher like myself, and so on and so forth. You may do all the schooling in the world, but if you are unable to adapt what you have learned in school to the real life challenges and make a positive difference on your person and that of others, then you are not educated. If the only thing you can do is steal, cheat, and fraud your way through life, then the education your country gives you is not good enough." Nelson Mandela expanded upon Horace Mann's quote by saying, "Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. It is the tool that helps individuals enjoy their human rights, achieve their full potential, or participate fully as equal members of society. The importance of education, therefore, dear citizens, cannot be overemphasized. And that is why I am here today, to talk to you specifically about the topic of education. I'm not going to be telling you anything you don't already know, but I will be emphasizing certain things about education that we must not forget. We must not forget these things, because these things cumulatively make this moment a crucial tipping point in our struggle. As we all know, our present struggle for restoration of our statehood, and I say restoration of our statehood, not independence, because we got independence in 1961, You must remember that too, because many people tend to forget that. We got our independence before we joined La République. Anyway, this struggle was triggered by the massive school boycotts in southern Cameroon. Now, this was not a coincidence, for you see, southern Cameroonians had finally realized that an inferior educational system was actually worse than no education at all. They had realized that it was time to take their own destiny in their hands, because self-determination is a God-given right. Southern Cameroonians placed a high premium on education. They therefore decided that they did not need permission from Paul Biya to free themselves from mental slavery. Mental slavery is the worst form of slavery. Let me tell you that. When you are mentally enslaved, you may not even realize it. Your mind is brainwashed and you become your own worst enemy. We have been subdued to mental slavery for too long, for over 56 years. And we can't pretend that we have not known for all these years that La République considers us as their slaves and inferior beings. We can't pretend about that. They have always told us so and promised to crush us like flies. Yes, we have also known this for a long time, but like the peaceful people that we are, we put our heads down and try to cohabit with them. But after trampling on everything that we hold dear, when La République decided to pollute our educational and legal systems, we southern Cameroonians finally realized that La République had gone too far and that we must stop them. We decided that we are going to free ourselves. We decided that we would free ourselves from an evil dictator and a corrupt French system that disrespects our identity as a people. The evil agenda of this wicked regime has been to completely destroy us by watering down our educational system. Remember that saying that we used to say when we were growing up as little kids in Boya, in Bamenda, Kumba, Mafe, all over southern Cameroons? Yes. We used to say something that went like this: a little learning, all knowledge is a dangerous thing. It is true. We were right. Limited knowledge can mislead people into thinking that they know something when they really don't know it. For how else can you explain the fact that 10 months into this saga, there are still some southern Cameroonians who do not seem to see the reason why we are in this struggle? How do you explain the strange phenomenon of some southern Cameroonians who are still sitting on the fence and trying to pretend as if all is well in our motherland? How do you explain the fact that some parents are saying that they are tired? Tired of what? Parents, what exactly are you tired of? Are you tired of 56 years of slavery? Or 1 year of keeping your children at home? What should you be more tired of? Slavery or staying with your own children to make sure that they too do not suffer under the hands of the slave master who has tortured you for 56 years? There can be only one reason for this lack of understanding: a little learning, a dangerous thing. What La République taught us in school. This is what La République has done to us. La République seems to have done such a good job at brainwashing us that they have even taken away from us our ability to think about a better future for our children. If we were truly educated, we would know that there is so much more out there to learn. An educated person is willing to conduct research on things that they do not know, such as our history. You can read books, you can search the internet, you can seek others who know more than you can listen to them, you can ask questions, and you can learn from them. Parents, you can educate your children about things about our country. Things that they can never learn in La Republique schools. Teach them useful skills while they are at home. Even you yourself can use this time to learn about the history of the noble people of Southern Cameroon and teach that to your kids too. Now, what makes the topic of education a little tricky, and I call it a very slippery slope, is that most of us have been in a classroom at a certain point in our lives. Yes, we've sat in a classroom, most of us. We probably sat in classrooms in the capacity of students. But many people think that by virtue of sitting in a classroom, they have become experts in matters of education. That is the problem with people like Dr. Adamu-Ndamjoya. He probably thinks that because he sat in a classroom and learned how to speak English, he knows more about our Anglo-Saxon system of education and our culture than we know. But no, nothing could be further from the truth. It is the mindset of people like Adamu-Ndamjoya that has caused La Republique to reduce many of us Southern Cameroonians to a group of people who went to school and who can read and write, but who cannot make anything out of it. All we do is depend on government to employ us. Many of us have become a group of people who are so afraid of our oppressor that all we can do is hide our head in the sand and pretend that nothing is happening. But a lot is happening. We are hurting. We have been hurting for a long time, and we don't want to hurt anymore. In fact, we all went to school, but many of us do not have the courage to speak the truth and stand by it. Many of us are still afraid to tell Adamu-Ndamjoya and Issa Chiroma and all those wicked people in La Republique in their faces that you are wrong. We are not your slaves. Even in the diaspora, and this is the saddest part about it, where Southern Cameroonians have tasted of freedom, some are still afraid of La Republique. Oh yes! They are in the diaspora, but they are still afraid of La Republique thousands of miles away. Many pretend as if they don't care. They go about their daily activities. They go to parties. They dance. They are happy. Pretend as if nothing is happening in Southern Cameroon. I look at them with a lot of sadness. Because I know that even though they are pretending as if they don't care, their real problem is fear. For how can you not care about your motherland? Maybe because La Republique did not teach us in their schools how to think for ourselves. They did not teach us our history. All they taught us in their worthless La Republique education was to wear fancy clothes, sit in offices and push papers. That isn't what makes an educated person. That is not education. Anybody can do that. Anybody can push papers. But educated people do not accept slave status from a colonizer. Educated people speak up against injustice and torture and flagrant abuse of human rights, especially when that is going on in their own motherland. The Americans did not accept this kind of status from the British. The Haitians did not accept it from the French. And the list goes on and on. South Sudan just recently refused to accept slave status. So why do we think that this can be okay for us? Why do some educated people, Southern Cameroonians, want to continue to accept this slave status under La Republique? Why are some of us, especially in the diaspora, afraid to stand up as one man and break this yoke of bondage around our necks once and for all? Why? Why? Somebody tell me. I don't understand it. I have wondered about this for so long, and I still don't get it. For as Rosa Parks says, and I quote, I have learned over the years that when one's mind is made up, this diminishes fear. Knowing what must be done does away with fear. Now, this is what I want to say. If Rosa Parks had not refused to give up her seat on that bus, many of you in the diaspora today, especially in America, would not even be here today. Or well, maybe you would have been here, but you would have come on a slave ship. Remember that. And to those of you who say you don't want to get engaged because half a loaf of bread is better than none, let me tell you this. It is not. Oh no, it isn't. It isn't. In fact, in our case, half a loaf of bread is actually dangerous. It is insulting because we produce the whole wheat, the grain that makes the bread. So why should we only have half a loaf? That is, if what we have is even half. For indeed, we have nothing. La République eats the whole loaf, and we pick up the crumbs that fall from their table. Now, let us make up our minds to break this here that diminishes our will to act. Let us join hands together and fix our nation, our dear motherland. Look at what is happening to our motherland, Southern Cameroons. We grow cocoa, but we cannot make chocolate. I mean, go to Swiss airports and see some of the exotic chocolates flowing out of fountains like lava out of Mount Fako. But the Swiss, they do not grow coffee nor cocoa. Think about that for a moment. They make the most exotic chocolates, but they don't grow coffee nor cocoa. We drive fancy cars, but we cannot manufacture any of them. We cannot even assemble them. Walk through the streets of Southern Cameroons and you will see all kinds of fancy cars driving on our roads. Well, that is, if you can call those things roads, because even donkeys cannot walk straight on some of those potholes. Seriously, donkeys will trip. Donkeys, camels, horses will trip and fall if they walk through some of the streets in Bamenda. It is a disgrace, a total disgrace. Don't we deserve even roads? Our roads kill. And recently, those roads took 19 precious lives of our beloved citizens. And on that note, let me take a moment to extend my heartfelt condolences to the families of our brothers and sisters who, once more, died in a ghastly car crash accident in Muyuka last weekend. May their souls rest in peace. But may those of us who are still living resolve that the lives of our citizens who have perished over the years in these death traps called roads, that their blood that was spilled by La République wickedness and recklessness does not go in vain. For if these roads and other infrastructures were properly built and maintained, these tragedies would not occur. But why all these tragedies? Why do we have roads that kill? Trains that derail on their own? Because we have engineers who graduated from the National Advanced School of Engineering, but they cannot build anything. If La République's educational system is so good, why can't we build our own roads? We have resorted to importing Chinese engineers to build roads for us. But you see, there is a problem with that. The Chinese engineer did not educate himself on the southern Cameroonian terrain. Our soil is different. Our hills and mountains may be higher and the valleys a little deeper than in China. And because our topography is different from China, and the Chinese engineers may not have learned about our landscapes in their Chinese schools, they cannot do a good job building our roads. Their skills are not adapted to our context. So when they build our roads, the roads collapse on us right after construction and they kill us. That's simple common sense, right? And only an uneducated government and regime like La République, Minister of Public Works and Transport, or whatever they call them, cannot see that. If they were truly educated, they would use their knowledge to the betterment of their communities. But instead, they steal, they cheat, and they engage in all kinds of corrupt practices that harm the people. Evil practices that reduce Southern Cameroonians to less than human. But what really makes it even worse is that we have genuinely highly educated Southern Cameroonians who can do all these things. Southern Cameroonians have both the natural and human resources to develop our nation. Some have gone overseas and studied even more. But many of these bright minds are running around the diaspora, working long hours, doing jobs that are way beneath their skills, while their country remains underdeveloped and poor. Southern Cameroons provides over 60% of the national GDP, but we have nothing. We cannot even mint our own money. We have to depend on an archaic French CFA that was created for one purpose only, to exploit us and maintain us as slaves to France forever. Well, I can go on and on, but I think you already know these things, and you know what I'm talking about. But like I say, we must remember them, always. We must remember them, because if we do not remember them, we start saying, oh, I'm sending my child to school, I'm too tired. If you go to school but you cannot use your skills to be productive, you cannot use your abilities to improve yourself and your family, you cannot develop your communities and your country and make the world a better place, then you are not truly educated. Education is about freeing the mind so that it can soar to new heights and create new things. It's not just about going to school. Despite our abilities to read and write, we Southern Cameroonians have been denied the right to determine our own futures. Because the schooling that our children are receiving under La République is so inferior that kids can't do anything meaningful with that kind of schooling. By depriving us of quality education, La République found the best way of making us poor, keeping us poor, and transmitting poverty to our unborn generations. So our school boycott is a strong statement. It is a strong and clear statement that we are making. And that statement is, we shall no longer submit our kids to an inferior educational system. We shall no longer be burdened by an antiquated French system that is counterproductive to our economy and that was already abandoned by France several years ago. We as a people of Southern Cameroons have determined that your low education, La République, is as bad as no education at all. Now, this was not always the case. So, I would like to recall a few historical facts about our education trajectory to my fellow citizens who tend to forget these things very quickly. Up until 1976, there were two separate educational systems in Cameroon, French and English. These two systems did not merge. Why? Because you can mix water and oil in a bottle and shake it vigorously for 56 years, but when you set it down, they will separate. They will separate naturally, automatically, because they were never meant to be blended together. This separation process may be slow. It may even take 56 years. But as surely as day is different from night, they will separate. We know this. And La République knows it too. And so they decided that instead of trying to blend something that can never blend, they should just eliminate us. Eliminate us so that we cease to exist as a people. So they started systematically and systemically taking down our cherished education system that we inherited from the British. They changed our curriculum to reflect their ways of life and culture. They changed the number of years that our children spend at each level of school attendance. Primary school, for example, became 6 years instead of 7. But they did not adjust the curriculum content to match the new grade levels. So our kids started experiencing cognitive gaps and confusion in their minds about their identity and who they really are right from primary school. They sent their Francophone teachers to unteach our kids. They occupied our land wholesale, and their children corrupted our children's minds with their bad behavior and their low morals. And by so doing, they robbed our children of the right to think for themselves, to know who they are, and to determine their own selfhood and their own future. They occupied our territory with their banking systems, their administrative offices, and their businesses, so that everywhere we went, even in our own territory, we could not even speak our own language. But we have decided that enough is enough. And we will no longer allow these kinds of abuses from an immoral dictator to continue. This struggle, fellow citizens, is not just a struggle to revive our educational system. It is a struggle to take back our lives from a dictator that is bent on annihilating us and everything that we stand for. We are in a battle for survival. Please, make no mistake about this. We are in a battle for survival. To those of you who are still doubting, those of you who are still waiting to be invited to participate in this struggle, which is naturally yours, those of you who have refused to stand up and speak out, this is our call to you. Now, we have given you the invitation. Come and join us. Otherwise, these noble people that you once identified with as Southern Cameroonians, they will disappear from the face of the earth. For if we fail now, La République will surely physically kill all of us. They have wanted to do so for a long time anyway. They are planning to spend 400 million to send their troops to kill our people. We are tired of running away from them, and so we must stand and face them. We have reached the end of our rope. Our backs are against the wall, and the only way out is forward. So we must kick back, and we must kick back hard. We must rescue ourselves from the fangs of death. Death by miseducation. For when you miseducate a man, you take away his manhood. You make him a shadow of himself, less than other men. In the 1970s and the 80s, Southern Cameroons was still ranked as one of the regions with the highest literacy rates in sub-Saharan Africa. We were more than equal to other countries around the globe. The educational system the British bestowed upon us had equalized us with the rest of the world. Never mind that even what the British gave us was a rudimentary system that was only good for their colonized people. But when we compared primary and secondary school leavers at the time in Southern Cameroons with other nations like America, Canada, Australia, comparing apples to apples, oranges to oranges, we were almost equal to everybody else. no educational system, not even the best in the world, can withstand the onslaught of a corrupt system of government like La République. In 1984, Paul Biya changed the country's name to the Republic of Cameroon, which means everything Anglo-Saxon was wiped out and a broken French system was forcefully imposed on us. La République knows that by imposing an inferior educational system on us, it makes us less competitive in our country and within the nations of the world. And this reduces us to an inferior status compared to other human beings. That is why La République is not a signatory to the 1990 Junction Agreement. La République did not sign the 2000 Dakar Framework for Action either. La République does not sign any regional nor international education treaties. And we know why. Oh yes, we know why. The Junction Conference was a game changer in global education. At this conference, the Education for All (EFA) initiative was launched by UNESCO, UNICEF, World Bank, the UN Development Program, and the UN Population Fund. And the specific stipulation of that treaty was to make education a top priority on the human development agenda. Now, when La République does not bother to participate in such initiatives, the message is clear. It does not care about our education and our future as a people, but we do. We care about ourselves, we care about our children and their future. We also care about our identity as a people. We are not fruits that fell from a tree that do not care about the tree that they fell from. We have an ancestry and we shall uphold that ancestry even if we die doing that. The Southern Cameroonian Education Board will fix the dysfunctional and completely broken system of education that La République has forced us to submit us to for all these years. We have put together a hard-working and highly talented team of professionals from home and abroad who are working day and night to design a new educational policy. We will ensure that the education policy we designed for our new country adheres to and even surpasses the Education for All initiative that was ratified in Dakar in the year 2000. These goals emphasize the rights of children to quality education. Our world-class educational policy targets general, technical, vocational, professional, non-formal, and special education. We are drawing upon the finest and the best models in the world and blending them with our local needs in mind so that the uniquely suited to our social, economic, and political context. Most importantly, we are making sure that the policy charts a pathway for our global engagement as individuals and as a nation. The end product will not be the educational system from any one country grafted upon us. It will be uniquely Southern Cameroonian. For example, from Finland, we are examining aspects like school attendance age, class size, and teacher-student ratio. From Singapore, we are integrating aspects of the revolutionary teacher preparation process that took Singapore from a third world nation to a world power. We know that teacher preparation and certification is arguably the most important factor that affects learning. And this process has to be completely reformed in our new nation. The reality now is that poor teacher training, lack of professional development, low pay, and other abuses have simply left our teachers on their own without any kind of support. These problems have led to lack of motivation and chronic absenteeism in the teaching profession, and students are directly affected. These abuses of the teaching corps further undermines an already weak educational system and contributes to the dismal academic outcomes of Southern Cameroonian students. Just last week, we learned of the publication of the political GCE results. Children were forced to take exams even though they had not attended classes. Seriously, this La République regime has simply gone from the ridiculous to the outright crazy. How do kids take exams when they didn't go to school? How do you justify testing something that you did not teach? Now, this is a clear indication that La République does not care about us, does not care about the children. They only care about the money we pay them in registration fees. If kids can be promoted without acquiring the academic skills that they are supposed to master in a given grade, why even bother to have schools? And you know why it doesn't matter to La République? Because they know that what happens in Southern Cameroon has never been about education. The systemic erosion of our educational values has always been about brainwashing our minds and maintaining our mental and physical slave status to them. That is why up until today, the BR regime has not made any significant improvements to our educational system, including teacher education. Teachers from English and French subsystems are supposed to operate as two separate entities for pedagogical, cultural, and historical reasons. Anglo-Saxon teachers have a culture of engaging in productive dialogues about new methods, such as the use of information and communication technologies, and how these methods can be used to support both themselves and their students. The La République system gives no room for dialogue. The Southern Cameroon's Education Board is working on a teacher preparation and certification program that will produce excellent teachers. Our new teacher education program will give teachers the skills and dispositions they need to help students acquire the kind of quality education that will put Southern Cameroon on the map among developed nations. Look at smaller countries like Rwanda and Ghana. Schools are well equipped with computers and iPads to enhance student learning. We have the natural resources to build infrastructure and acquire 21st century technologies for our schools. We are going to build the human resource capacities. We have the expertise to do that. Beginning teachers will have mentors. They will also have startup funds in their early years in service to provide them with the necessary materials and supplies that they need to facilitate their work. The teaching profession will have a new ethos of nationalism. Teachers will have a greater responsibility towards nation building and work to instill a sense of pride and patriotism in our students. Nothing can be worse than not knowing who you are and therefore not taking pride in your heritage, which is what has happened to some of the people in the diaspora. They are lost. They don't know their heritage or pretend as if they had no heritage at all. Nothing is worse than being called fools, enemies in the house, Biafrans. Look at us in the diaspora. We have run away from the joblessness in our motherland to foreign lands that often do not even welcome us. Every day we break our backs. We work long hours. We work harder than anybody else. We sometimes do jobs that even they do not want to do. But every day we are reminded that this is not our country. And even when they give you their citizenship, they tell you every day to go back to your own country. But we Southern Cameroonians have no country to go back to. And unfortunately, many of us have decided that we do not care whether we have a country to go to or not. What are we then? Motherless children? homeless vagabonds? With all the education we acquire in foreign lands, we cannot go and give back to our own communities? Why? Why should we be condemned to die in exile? Why should we continue to be strangers in somebody else's land? What crime did we commit to La République to deserve this? We have already designed a new academic calendar uniquely suited for Southern Cameroonians. This calendar is ready to go into effect as soon as the moment is right. The new academic calendar takes into consideration many factors regarding number of school days, contact hours in a year, and many things from early childhood, primary, secondary, and high school levels. We have also infused within our calendar national holidays that honor our heroes, traditions, and our values as people. For example, some of the holidays included in this new calendar are International Day of the Girl Child and Memorial Day for heroes who lost their lives for our struggle. For we will never forget those who paid the ultimate price for our freedom. We are determined that they will not have died in vain. In terms of levels of learning, the Southern Cameroon Education Board has designed and put in place a robust early childhood system. For research shows that the formative years from 3 to 7 can be the most important years in the child's life, as the brain is quickly developing and the foundations of most learning are established at these ages. It is important to note that our calendar makes room for closing the cognitive gaps that have been created by the school boycotts, and especially the achievement gaps brought about by the miseducation of our kids by La République teachers. We know that when schools resume, there will be a lot of catching up to do. We have taken all of these things into consideration. We have examined the need for and will put into place school zoning guidelines to make sure that school size and location of schools are guided by rigorous accreditation processes. This will check the random emergence of schools everywhere in Southern Cameroon. Schools that really do nothing but siphon money from vulnerable parents. The policy we are writing is holistic. It includes all levels and forms of education, and also ensures that special populations are properly accommodated and given their rightful place in our nation. Children with special needs like dyslexia, autism, attention deficiency syndrome, the blind, the deaf, the lame can contribute to society too. These special populations do not have to be abandoned and left to die. They too have human rights, and those rights must be protected. If our policy is properly implemented in our restored nation, graduates from our schools will be able to find jobs in both government and private sectors. But most especially, they will be able to create new jobs. It is the creation of new jobs that sustains a booming economy. No child, no teacher, nor anybody for that matter will be left behind in a new Southern Cameroon. That is our promise to you, and that is a promise we intend to keep. For we have suffered too much at the hands of La République, and we should not suffer anymore in our new nation. And we will make sure of that. We are basing our reformation of the educational policy on the models of the 4 C's. Now, what are the 4 C's? The 4 C's are: 1, clear and bold vision. This refers to the goals, policies, frameworks, and standards that the Southern Cameroon Education Board is working at right now. Number 2, commitment to implementation. This is the most important but often the most challenging and sometimes neglected piece of policy policy design. We will make sure that the ambitious policies that we are designing do not end up in a drawer somewhere gathering dust. We are committed to implementation. Otherwise, all this hard work we are doing would be in vain. Number 3, coherence. Implementing the education policy must ensure pragmatic coherence between the intent and the practice. Otherwise, there will be no sustainability. We cannot go back to square one. Number 4, capacity. Capacity has to do with clear goals, especially the ambitious ones we are designing. For those goals call for high levels of skills in implementation and execution. The education policy will need to be carefully navigated by experts who are knowledgeable and who have the right skills and competencies to meet our goals. Now, this factor of capacity, the 4th C, is very important. We have existed in a system for more than 5 decades where nepotism and what is commonly known as man no man is what gets people jobs. We must discontinue that practice in a new dispensation. People must earn positions, not have it handed to them. Building capacity, therefore, is very important. We want to fit square pegs in square holes, so that our new nation can experience success at all levels. We have worked a lot. We are still working hard, but there is still much work to do. For designing an education policy for the model country we are trying to create requires not just expertise, but it also requires thoroughness and thoughtfulness. And we are applying all of these ingredients, but we could use more experts. Now, you wouldn't want a plumber to do your operation, would you? Just because he can handle tools doesn't mean that his tools are the right ones for your body, nor his plumbing skills the kind of expertise you need to fix your health. Now, this is a problem we are facing with La République, and we must discontinue it. And some of us are here to make sure that in our new nation, this bad practice of entitlement does not rear its ugly head again. We are therefore calling for those of you who have the skills and genuinely want to build this new nation to join the education department. Those who have expertise, especially in areas like math, science, technology, are especially urged to serve. For when we get into the nitty-gritty of drawing up the curriculum, we shall need input from experts in all subject areas. However, I have a warning, and this is a serious warning. We are looking for patriots, those who are willing to give of their time and talents for a higher cause, those with a sense of nationalism. Nobody is paid to do this work. We sacrifice many hours and energy, but we do it gladly because we know that freedom is not free. And we also know that there can be no price too high to pay for freedom. We are therefore not interested in those who are seeking power, self-aggrandizement, grandstanding, or any other kind of personal gain. And so if you are one of those people who are in this just to grandstand and talk big and show yourself and make everybody see you as if you have arrived, don't even bother to apply to the education board. But how did we get here? How did we get to a point where we had no choice but to reject La République's miseducation of our children and start over? I will just remind you of a few relevant facts. And I keep saying that these are reminders because I know that you already know these things. But like I said before, we tend to forget. And our amnesia is what La République takes advantage of. So we must remember. Since our independence in 1961, Christian mission schools have played a significant role in educating our children. We thank the church for that. But mission schools have been a privilege that is accessible only to some students whose parents could afford it. Most parents cannot afford mission schools. Some who send their kids to these schools have to deny themselves basic necessities of life in order to pay tuition and school fees. Parents do this in the hope that their children will graduate from these schools and have good jobs to take care of the family and maybe help them pay back the loans that they took to send their kids to school. But we also know that even when our children graduate from the best mission schools, there is no guarantee that they will have jobs. Or, even if they manage to have jobs, the jobs that they have pay them so little that they can barely survive on their salaries. Most of these children either come back to the village and work in the farms with their parents, or go to drive a taxi cab in town, or even worse, ride a motorbike for a living. Now, don't get me wrong. There is nothing wrong with farming, driving a taxi cab, or riding a motorbike for a living if that's what you choose to do as your profession and you love doing it. But what I don't understand is, who would want to ride a motorbike on roads that will kill you? Besides, if you went to school and spent all that money getting a university degree, why would you then go and ride a motorbike? Wouldn't it have been better if you had just saved the money and started a business instead? I mean, this is a no-brainer. Even the missions know this. The churches know that school just for the sake of schooling is a waste of time and resources. So we would like the missions to remember its responsibility to the people of southern Cameroons. School for the sake of schooling has no purpose. We want them to continue recalling that schooling is only meaningful when it also educates the individual. School is only important when it caters for the total human being, the mind, the body, and the spirit. For a mind and a body that is not free cannot learn math, English, chemistry, and anything for that matter. If the church is to remain faithful to her mission of saving lives, she cannot appear to be on the side of the oppressors of these people, of the people. I see all of these notices coming out of, saying something like PSS Mancon and PSS Bifuh is registering children for schools in September, or that some mission schools are actually in September. What is all this? The church needs to take a stand and not conduct itself in a manner that gives the impression that it is colluding with a dictator to kill us. The church needs to stop flip-flopping. Today they are writing a powerful letter to La République outlining our grievances, and tomorrow they are opening their school doors on the pretext that parents want it. No! Parents do not want the missions to open those school doors, and I think the parents have told the church so in many ways. That is why they took their children out of the mission schools, even when the schools were still in session in November. What has changed? The reasons for which parents took their children out of schools and kept them home are still valid. Nothing has. In fact, the situation is worse now than it was in November. More children have been kidnapped and locked up in dungeons. More girls have been raped. More of our brothers have been maimed. More killed. And more soldiers are occupying our land as we speak. So what would make the church think that the parents now want to send their kids back to mission schools when the situation is actually worse than it was in November? Have you asked yourselves, you church and mission, Why so many kids who graduated from your Sacred Heart College with 5 A-level papers are driving Okada? Why so many degrees holders are hawking Chinese goods on our streets? So you churches, you must continue to keep those school doors closed. For as you rightly said, you did not close them in the first place. We no longer want to live in a system where the so-called education that is given to us has no value. A society where education gives one no hope. In all societies in the world, education, not just schooling, remember that distinction, is one of the greatest rights after the right to life. And that is what we are fighting for. We are fighting for our lives. And we shall not stop resisting La République until we get back our lives. We want a Southern Cameroon where quality education is free. Again, let me repeat this. Education is a basic human right. There is no doubt about that. And therefore, there should be no price tag on it. Governments have a responsibility to provide free quality education to their citizens, especially from primary through high school. If parents send their kids to mission schools, it should be because they have chosen to do so, not because they have no other choice. The Southern Cameroonian Education Board will make sure that free quality education is a right and not a privilege to a select few. What we have now called free primary education is a total disgrace, a disaster. Schools are run down, buildings are dilapidated, classrooms are overcrowded, and parents must pay for all and sundry. In 2004, a government study found that 2.9 million students attended primary schools, but that there were only 1.8 million seats in those classrooms. What does that mean? This means that about half of our children attending primary schools have to either stand up or sit in the doors in classrooms to learn. Imagine that. How is that possible? Most schools do not have working toilets, no access to pipe-borne water. How can any human being learn under such conditions? When we cried out, as we always do, La République government launched one of their fake programs of education and renewal, construction and renewal, they call it, that yields no results. All the money for the so-called construction was stolen and stashed in boxes and in foreign banks. I'm not making this up. You can see it in videos that are circulating on social media. And the reason people celebrate when they are appointed into positions in La République, they can now steal, with impunity and never face any jail time. As we all know, in 1998, La République du Cameroon won the prize of being the most corrupt country in the world. According to the agency that conducts such studies, Business Monitor Transparency International, La République has worked very hard since then to maintain its first place position as the world's most corrupt country. Now, nothing can work in a corrupt system. Corruption is a deadly disease. It is a cancer. And the only way to cure cancer is to cut it out. So we are rejecting this system wholesale because there are no good cancer cells, none. This cancer called La République du Cameroon has been sucking our children's brains and damaging their minds for too long. It is time for it to end. We do not need a school system that is unfit for any 21st century global economy. A system that makes us less competitive in our country and at the international job marketplace. You can't take a certificate from Cameroon and go directly to any university overseas and have admission into the next level of education. The certificate must first be translated, then verified, and then an equivalence found. Sometimes you are even required to retake the same courses that you already took, because the courses that you took under the La République system have no descriptions, and there is no way of knowing where they belong in the scope and sequence of the international school curricula. I mean, the schools will not even send your transcript to the new universities where you want to attend. The grading system is so archaic, inherited from France. While the rest of the world grades over 100%, La République forces us to grade over 20. Now, somebody please tell me, what does 10 on 20 mean? Is it a pass, a fail, or an average? If it is a pass, is it a high pass, a low pass, or just an average pass? Or is it neither pass nor fail? Because it seems to me that it all depends on whoever is interpreting this 20-point grading scale. When we look at our children's report cards, this grading system makes no sense to us whatsoever. We are as confused as our children. For I have seen cases where kids had 10 on 20 and were celebrating that they had passed, and I've also seen cases where other kids had 12 on 20, but they were issued academic warnings. So, what does it all mean? Nobody knows. Even La République doesn't know. But there is one thing that we know, and that is, we are no longer willing to put up with such a senseless educational system. A system where parents, students, and even teachers cheat to pass because the government does not value hard work. This is the reason why so many highly educated Southern Cameroonians go overseas but end up doing jobs that are way beneath their educational qualifications. Yes, people are tired, but tired of the joblessness at home. Why did we spend all that money and time on a piece of paper that is worthless? A piece of paper that cannot grant us upward mobility. We Southern Cameroonians must together, not just a few of us, all of us, at home and in the diaspora, we must therefore categorically reject this disease called La République de Cameroon and its worthless schooling system. We must follow Chairman Sisiku Julius Tabe's instructions to wear white and declare a Passover of the La République corrupt system of education on the day that schools are supposed to reopen in September. And may I add that we must wear white even in the diaspora in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in the motherland to symbolize this Passover. Dear parents, students, and all the educational stakeholders in Southern Cameroon, I would like to speak to you now directly. Now, we have heard that a few government school teachers are eager to go back to school because they fear losing their salaries and their matriculation numbers. Some lay and private school teachers who have actually sacrificed more are also planning to go back to work if government school teachers do so. Some of you say you are simply tired of everything and you want to send your children to La République region to go to school. Now, that is very sad. And indeed, frankly, I don't understand it. I really don't. I've already explained to you why these schools are not worth the time, nor the money we pay for them. And trust me, we know, because many of us pay the tuitions of those kids who are going to those worthless schools, you know, in Southern Cameroon from the diaspora. We know. We go back, we look at them. A first grade child cannot read. You ask a child her birthday, she does not know. Basic things that preschool children know in other parts, our Cameroonian children do not know. Children say they have completed class 6, they cannot read a paragraph in a book. But remember why La République citizens started sending their children to our schools? Because they knew that even though education in the whole Cameroon was bad, in Southern Cameroon, it was still a little bit better. How can you now send your children to a system that even those who created it are running away from? How can you go back now to a foreign country to register your kids in the land of the same people who oppress you, insult you, rape your girls, maim and kill your men, and abduct your innocent citizens? How can you? As the Bible says, that would be like a dog going back to its vomit. Yes, you have made tremendous sacrifices. 1 year out of school for children is no small price to pay. But let's look at the big picture. 2, 3 years of law schooling might be even a higher price to pay. But it is a price worth paying. Ghana did it, and they came out stronger and better for it. We too can do it. Do not listen to people who have received bribes from La Republique to sabotage our cause. Their brainwashed minds are so small that they are just looking only beyond their noses. Look at the big picture. Parents, your children are your most prized possessions. You should want only the best for them. And you have always sacrificed so much to give them the best. You and your children deserve better. Think about 5, 10, so many years from now. What would you want for your children? What kind of country would you want them to live in and work in? Remember that things can only get worse if we don't stop La Republique. We have better plans for our kids, for you, for ourselves, for all of us, for tomorrow. And that tomorrow is worth waiting for. That tomorrow is worth fighting for. We all must be a part of the change that we want. The market men and women of Bamenda prove that today. And I thank them. I thank my mothers and fathers of the business community in Bamenda who told Ndumu the truth today to counter his lies. We are tired of their lies and intimidations. He gave us warning. He bullied our parents, but you stood up to him and you told him that your children will not go back to school while the rest of them are suffering in dungeons in Kondengi. And we shall stand as one man in this struggle. Students, now let me talk to you personally. As a teacher to students, a teacher for more than 30 years of my life, who started teaching in Cameroon, and I've been teaching all over the world, and I'm now teaching teachers in the university in the US. You have the right to an education that gives you the freedom to pursue your dreams in a world that is becoming mostly digital. You have that right. By polluting our educational system, La Republique has robbed you not only of your human rights and dignity, but has denied you even the right to dream. They have compromised not only your right to live in a thriving economy, but they have compromised your health, they have compromised your future, and they have taken away from you your chance at happiness. Even when you only have to live a short life in La Republique system because of disease and poverty, they have taken away from you that chance to be happy even in a short life. Is that what you want for yourselves? A hopeless life? Youth is the time when people discover themselves and dream big. But in Cameroon, youth can be picked up anytime by La Republique forces of lawlessness and taken to the concentration camps of Kondengi for nothing. Now, they were just walking down the streets and minding their own business, doing what youths do everywhere, enjoying their lives, relaxing, but they are arrested. And when you are picked up, we may never see you again. And even when you are released, you may not live long because you were poisoned while in detention. You saw the dreadful images of our sons and brothers in jail being poisoned by lead and asbestos so that they will have cancer and die even after they are released. In short, La République has taken away from you not only your freedom, but your right to life. I ask you again, don't you want to live your lives to the fullest, youths? For what is life when you are not free? Why should Paul Biya send his daughter to California in the USA, where she squanders millions of our taxpayers' money on herself and her friends, while you cannot even have the right to walk freely in your own motherland? Now tell me, is that just? Is that fair? Is that even humane? Isn't that alone something worth fighting for and changing? University students, why are you hiding and going to the so-called Anglophone universities when there is no hope of a job when you graduate after paying all this money? Why do you and your parents struggle to pay tuition and you have to go without food and school supplies while Brenda Eyenga Bia pays more than 1 million francs CFA to a limousine driver to take her from her apartment, luxury apartment, to her school, which is a distance of less than 2 miles? Why? Is this normal? Are the children of these thieves better than you? Are they smarter than you? If all that stolen money was well invested, we would have free education. We must therefore stand up as one person with one resolve and resist La République. We can't turn our backs now and run away from this fight. Otherwise, we will live to fight another day. That is if they let us live. Because we have heard, and you've also heard, that La République has signed a document for 400 million CFA for more troops to be sent to our southern Cameroonians' land to occupy our land and kill us. So now we have no choice but to fight. Stand firm, resist them. And by fighting, I do not mean that we are going to take bazookas and like them and guns. I just mean we will fight them with our will. We have come so far. We cannot stop now. We must get to the finish line. We must resist La République, not only in our hiding places where nobody can see us, but we must stand up tall and bravely and show our faces and say to them, enough already. We are not cowards. La République capitalizes on our fears. But we must reach that high level of human capacity when we can say, like the US Commander Patrick Henry, give us liberty or give us death. That is how truly educated people think. They value freedom more than their lives. La République can intimidate us. They can kill some of our brothers. But they should know that they can never kill our spirit of resistance. Because we have shown so much fear, La République has intensified its harassment and brutality on our people. Every day we hear of more random arrests or crimes not committed. La République knows that fear is the worst emotion that holds a people captive. And it has used brutality to its advantage for decades, to a point where we are mere shadows of ourselves. In fact, some of us are even afraid of our own shadows. And because of this fear, we are more unsafe now than we were in November 2016. In November, the Okada boys and Mancho Bibixi defied La République forces and went to the streets to make their voices heard. Then what happened after that? Why do you now only talk in whispers and hide your faces? We cannot allow La République to continue intimidating us forever. For the only way to stop a bully is to stand up to him. And Paul Biya is a cowardly bully. We must tell this coward this absentee landlord, that we will not continue to submit ourselves to his intimidation. We will resist La République. We pledge that even our unborn children shall resist La République. For no human being should be made a slave in his own land. Remember what they say? That the darkest part of the night is at dawn. We have resisted La République for 10 months. We have sacrificed so much. Well, I believe that the dawn is near and this nightmare will soon be over. We are witnessing the last kicks of a dying horse. If we all put our hands together and strengthen our resolve and show these beasts that we are no longer afraid of their guns, we can kick them out of our land. For no government, no matter how strong, no dictator, no matter how vile, has ever won against the determined will of a people. And we are determined. It is unacceptable. It is unethical. In fact, it is unthinkable for schools to resume when La République is holding educators like Dr. Fontaine Niba of the University of Boya, or Mr. Penn, the vice principal of Cas Bambili, in his concentration camps at Kondengi. And I thank you, parents, for reminding Dumu of that today. It is unacceptable to go about our businesses as if nothing is happening when a murderer is killing our children and husbands right in our own backyard. It is honestly unimaginable to some of us that some people are hoping that if they look the other way, these abuses will go away, or Bia will pity us and stop oppressing us. No, he won't. He will not stop. For the past 56 years, things have only become worse. And so we must stop La République. Only we can stop La République. How can any parent send their own kids to school while other children are in jail? How can one sister learn when her brother is nowhere to be found? Are some children's lives more valuable than others? No. We should all be together in this. We in the diaspora, we are not clueless of some of the detractors that are trying to make you think that we don't know what is happening. We know everything that's going on on the ground. We have heard the cries of parents about the truancy that some of our children are now engaged in shutdown. We have heard of the unwanted pregnancies, which anecdotal reports say that are caused by La République forces of lawlessness that have occupied our land, and they continue to rape our girls. We have also heard of the spike in drug usage among our teenage boys and young adults. Our hearts are breaking for all of these unfortunate occurrences and the crimes committed on our population by La République. We are all victims. But we have come so far and we must continue to resist until something happens. Only after we drive these people from our land can we then turn around and hold them accountable for these crimes. For how can we ever forgive La République for these crimes? If we return to school now, these criminals will get away with murders, all the murders that they have committed on us for all these years. When La République leaves our territory, we will take back our schools and our country and put in place institutions that will ensure quality education and a better quality of life for our people. We will educate our girls on how to avoid premature sex that results in unwanted pregnancies, especially from criminals who are sent to our territory to distribute venereal diseases, HIV, and AIDS. Because that's all what the La République forces who are in our land are concerned about. Distributing AIDS. In fact, parents and leaders in the community, you should be educating your kids on these topics. Educate your children on good morals and values. For if you don't educate them at home, they will listen to their friends or pick up wrong information from some dirty CRTV program, and this will pollute their minds. Supervise your kids while they are at home. In our new educational dispensation, anybody of any age will be able to attend school. Even parents may be able to go back to school and learn something new. Every year in America, people graduate from educational institutions in their 80s, even in their 90s. Education should have no limit due to age. Mothers and fathers sometimes graduate university with their children, sometimes the same year, and sometimes this makes news, and sometimes it really doesn't make news because it's the norm. It's not the exception, it's just normal for people to go to school at any age. There should be no limitation on our people's aspirations and dreams of upward mobility based on their age. People should be able to change careers if they want to at any time, and have a chance to go to school at any time they want to and train themselves so that they can better themselves. Nobody should have the right to say to anybody, oh, you can't go to school because you're too old. It is only in the Republic that these brainless policies exist, and nobody has the courage to challenge them. The age limitation on some institutions in the Republic-Du Cameroon is corrupt. It is ridiculous. It is abuse of human rights and must be condemned in the strongest terms. Age is just a number. It is our minds and bodies and the ability to do the work that should determine how far we go in life to secure opportunities for ourselves. Not some kind of uninformed dictator who was kicked out of the seminary for stealing sugar. I mean, just because he cannot learn anything doesn't mean that the rest of us should be condemned to live in a state of ignorance like him. The Southern Cameroon Education Board will throw out these abusive and senseless practices, and in its place we will implement a policy that is befitting of dignified human beings. In subsequent programs, I will be giving you details about the curricula that we are preparing. But for today, I am here to appeal to you to continue to hold firm. Be strong. Stay resolute. Don't give up. I know that some of you would wish for me to tell you when exactly we shall roll out our policy. I will say to you that a lot depends on when La République leaves our land. What I can tell you is that in subsequent appearances, Chairman Sisiku or VP Tassan or SG Milan will give you more details on timetables. So much is happening right now. Our struggle is a fast-moving target. But when the time is right, the world-class policy that we are working on will be rolled out and ready to go into effect immediately. I can also tell you that we are examining other resources that we can provide so that our kids continue their education during this transition period at home. Unfortunately, I cannot share the details of that with you because La République will sabotage our plans. That is all what La République knows how to do. Sabotage anything Southern Cameroonian. Parents, students, and every Southern Cameroonian. We must all therefore make sure that this struggle ends in victory. You must stand your ground. University students, you must continue to make sure that your impact is felt in this struggle. University students have always been at the front line of change, the world over. You should be no different. We want you to take your role of leadership seriously. For youths are indeed the future of any nation. Hiding and going to school in Boya and Bamenda gains you nothing. All it does is compromise your future. La République may arrest you. We know what they do. They may rub your faces in feces. They may rape our girls, brutalize and maim you. But we must prove to the occupier that nothing will stop us. We are tired of these abuses. But we should never tire of fighting for our dignity as a people. They are waiting for us to be tired and to stop. We should tell them that we are not going to get tired because this is our God-given right. Thank you very much. And may God bless you and keep you strong. May God give all of our Southern Cameroonians and our sympathizers the courage to stay this cause, for it is a just cause. May we all realize that we must be the change that we hope for and that we want. This struggle continues, and we know that because the struggle is ordained by God, this struggle will certainly end in victory. Long live Southern Cameroonians. Thank you very much.
Hello, Ambazonians. I have come with an important message for you. First, to congratulate you on your resolve, your determination, and your commitment to regain your freedom. The world is watching you in silent admiration. From the night watchman to the teacher, the clergy and the church, from the Puff Puff woman and Mankan to the Bambabe and Fiango. You have all stood up as one person against oppression, to affirm your dignity, to assert your rights, and to restore your lost sovereignty as a nation. It's the first step to building a new, bright, and prosperous future for yourselves and for your children. There's no turning back. It will not serve you well to make short-sighted compromises now. You've bought a one-way ticket home to Boya. Yewande got the message and is panicked that you will never again accept second-class citizenship. Not after 60 years. Not ever. Enough is enough. A year lost out of school is the price we have paid. It's no small price, I know, but it's because you have a long tradition of superior quality standards. You expect an education system which responds to the challenges of the 21st century and the demands of the future. You only have to look at Ghana. They have one of the best education systems in Africa today. They don't regret losing several years of school to first regain their freedom. This struggle has 3 important life lessons for children of Ambazonia. Lesson number 1, a bended stick cannot be straightened. Lesson number 2, no condition is permanent. And lesson number 3, it is no use running when you're on the wrong road. In a few days, the new chairman of SCACUF will make his policy speech and will address education. We are calling on you to be patient while a new curriculum is being designed for the youth of Ambazonia. The ghost towns have been hugely effective. Your disengagement from Yewande will cement the course towards full restoration of statehood for southern Cameroons. So, school can wait. The school curriculum has been watered down to become as worthless as the BAC. Why do you think the mayor of Boya has fake academic credentials? Why do you think Francophone kids are rushing to enter your schools? Why do you think Ambazonians spend more on education than the rest of the country? Why do you think the Education Ministry recognizes that the best teachers are in your school system? If all that is true, why have they insisted all these years on reforming your education system, but standards have continued to decline? Enough is enough. Your children deserve a world-class education. They deserve training which will prepare them for the jobs market or for self-employment. Shortly, they will get a new curriculum which accomplishes both these requirements, and the sacrifices you are making now will be an investment in a brighter future for them. Ambazonians, it's unacceptable that schools should resume when Yewande insists on holding educators like Dr. Phantom Neba hostage, when the parents of school-aged children are languishing in jail. We must stand solidarity with them. This is one fight we started together and we'll finish together. It will be unconscionable that children resume school when no reckoning has been made with children being tortured, killed, jailed, and raped a few months ago. Your future is not in Yewande. You have another home in view, and your march resolutely to Boya, so that your flag will proudly fly again. Thanks for watching. Stay strong, and long live the gallant people of Southern Cameroons.
Sacrifice. Thank you. Joe, come.